Hey, everybody, and welcome to another session of A Real Point of View. I am the real movie guy. My name is Greg, and I'm with a host of
Ridiculous people.
ridiculous movie critical people, for sure. Uh, we have the guy who just spoke up first, Stephen C. He's the man who doesn't pick a bad movie. We've got Larry Domkowski down here. He is the must-see movie film critic and on Facebook. And we have the movie maven herself, Miss Karen D, with her attachment, it looks like there.
Siamese twin.
This is my lawyer.
Of Glenn M, who's more kind of like the sports part of our broadcast, kind of, sort of. So we're talking about villains. So there's villains everywhere. But do you always recognize them? Are they in disguise?
Well, some of them might be here.
Say again?
Some of them might be here.
Some of them might be here.
One of them just spoke up.
Some of them might be an attachment. Okay, so we're going to talk villains. I mean, there's villains of every shape, form, and size. Villains in cartoons, villains in dramas, villains in theater, other theater on the stage. But we're talking movies here, so favorite movie villains, people who don't think are villains, villains in disguise, all that good stuff. So let's talk about who your favorite villain is in film.
Well, I'll jump in right quick
because there's so many cool villains.
There are.
I'll jump in right quick. Maybe call me prisoner of the moment, but he jumped to the top of my list real quickly, and that's Thanos. I mean, everything about him, more so from Infinity War, but in aspects of Endgame as well, but more so from Infinity War, and just this ability to, I mean, everything pretty much hinged on Thanos. I mean, the success of everything they did hinged upon how well the actor portrayed Thanos and what Thanos brought to the MCU with everything else that happened beforehand. Here's a guy that you've seen bits and pieces of, but now the majority of this movie is going to rest upon your ability to believe in his infinite quote unquote evil, or his ability to just control the whole scenario of where the movie was and where it's going. And not only did he do that, he did it in such a way that you found yourself not necessarily pulling for him, but at the very least, I get where you're coming from, bro. Yeah, I see where you're going, and wow, that's kind of messed up. And like, are you really bad? And that's the thing about villains, that they'll usually tell you that the best villains are the ones that don't believe that they're villains. They're the ones that, they're doing what they believe is right and just and necessary, and probably the emphasis on necessary.
Or they're trying to get what they want, and they think that the means justify, whatever means they use justify them getting what they want.
Yeah. And that kind of a villain has to have a certain amount of pathos with them, so that the audience has something to relate to, and then there's a twist in there, and you almost say, oh, that almost could be me,
right? Yeah,
you know. So we find ourselves also in that villain.
Yeah,
right.
Excellent. That's exactly, you hit it right on the head, Larry. I was seeing myself not so much as Thanos, but within his message that he was saying, I could identify with what he was saying. I could relate to him. And to do that, the reason why he's my favorite villain is because maybe the actor portraying, his villainy rose to the charts for me, because he had to do that in this movie, and you're just now seeing him. I mean, the other characters have had a couple of movies for you to get to know who they were, to establish where they were going, who they may be now. He pretty much had to do this right then and there in the midst of action. And most of Infinity War was a lot of battles, a lot of action, and the characters are already established. And I mean, really, in the first 5 minutes, you're like, man, for real, you like that? That was cold. And then you don't see him for a while, and then when you see him again, it's like, whoa. And then you get a little backstory. You're like, yeah, okay, a little backstory. And then it's like, oh, okay. Oh, man, wow, I really felt that when you pushed her and killed her. I felt that you got some pain there. And, okay, now move on to your next villainy, you know. And it's just, it was just amazing. And so for me, Thanos, and then even in Endgame.
Well, don't say too much about Endgame.
Right.
Some of us haven't seen it.
Understood, but even in Endgame, he kind of recaptures that again, you know, when you see him. So I'll get off my horse there, but Thanos to me is my all-time movie villain at this moment.
Well, Killmonger shares a lot of the same traits with Thanos, and just that. Well, I mean, okay, I'll just throw this in.
Tell us what Killmonger's from.
Okay, I will, but I just want to say this. I'm throwing this in here, but this is not my favorite villain. He's one of my favorites, so in case I can't get to him, I'll just say this. Okay, Killmonger was in Black Panther.
Yeah.
Yes, and what I loved about Killmonger was that to me he was like the thinking man's villain, because he had like practically a manifesto that was, you know, that had just been percolating ever since he was a child, and when he saw his father killed in front of him, and just percolating along, and he just went like put an immense amount of thought into how he was going to deploy what he was doing and why he was doing it, and his intent was to completely upset the balance of power and to reset it so that people without power, and he envisioned himself among that, would have it. Of course, he would wield power on behalf of all the powerless, because he was the only one really smart enough to do it. And while I'm sitting there watching the movie going, oh my God, you're like this horrible man, and I really don't like a lot of stuff that you're doing. But at the same time, I kind of really get why you're doing it, because actually a lot of like this whole like, you know, absence of justice and, you know, the world is not working the way it's supposed to thing, that resonates. I totally get that. And I really hate the way your solution sucks, but the fact that you actually came up with like a mega solution to address this, pretty interesting, pretty nifty. And so, yeah, I mean, it's like part of me was kind of rooting for him, even though part of me was like, oh my God, I can't, the horror, you know.
The horror, yeah.
All right, those were very good, and I guess we kept that Marvel theme going.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you allow me,
Mm-hmm.
I've got one here, and I'm going back to 1969.
Whoa!
All right, and I'm going a Robert Redford film. Stars Robert Redford and Gene Hackman, and the movie is Downhill Racer.
Oh.
Now, why Downhill Racer, and who's the villain here in this film? Well, Robert Redford is the villain in this film. He's this young, very aggressive, very focused, athletic skier who wants to get Olympic gold, and he will stop at nothing to do it, including watch other people nearly get killed in his pursuit of that Olympic gold. And the story takes place over a few years as he gets closer and closer and closer to this. And he ruins relationships. He ruins other people's chances at their dreams. And you know what? He simply doesn't care. And when one of the coaches is approached by other team players, and this is a good twist here, as the other skiers are going, but he's not a team player. And the coaches look at these guys and say, you know something? Skiing isn't really a team sport. Giving credence to Robert Redford's character's behavior throughout this whole storyline. And so what's happening in this film here is that we've accepted as a society, this film is telling us that we've accepted this concept that sometimes it's okay to be the villain. And that's what, and in 1969, during all of the political, brouhaha that was going on, this really had a twisted message for its audience. Roger Ebert wrote about this, saying that this was the best sports film, and it had nothing to do about sports.
Talk about it.
It all had to do with this one guy who was so obsessed that he was willing to let people crash and burn so that he could get Olympic gold.
Wow. The pursuit of happiness, right?
Or something. Yeah.
So what do you got, Steve?
I'm not going to talk about one of the ones that I mentioned earlier beforehand. I'm going to talk about another one that ever since I've seen this movie, it keeps me interested every time, and I pay more attention to this character every time I see it. The movie is No Country for Old Men.
Oh man, that dude. Okay, I'm sorry.
And the character is Anton Chigurh.
Yeah.
They took a horror movie genre villain, a Friday the 13th, the Michael Myers style villain, and they brought him into a more real world setting. This is an unstoppable force. There is no remorse. There is no mercy. Everything could happen at the flip of a coin with this guy.
Literally.
He's literally a character that's hired by the cartel to track down $2.4 million. When he finds out that another guy got to the money before him, he literally spends the whole time hunting this person down and taking out anybody that just so much as annoys him or is in his way. And at one point he does it with, I forget what they call it. It's a certain kind of pistol that is used to sanely, I stress sanely right there, put down cattle, in which you literally take an air tank, you put a pin to their head, and you press it. And it literally sends a bolt into their head, into the brain, completely dead, done, over. No feeling, no nothing. And it sucks it back out.
Ew.
That is what he's using to kill certain people. And he actually is so proficient in what he does, he uses it to open the locks on locked doors. Like the little door locks, you just put it to it and it goes right through it.
Yeah, I knew there was some reason I couldn't watch this movie.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how efficient and monstrous this person is for a guy who's almost like very psychological in the way he talks to people and presents things to them, in the fact that I'm going to get my way.
Yeah.
In my way, or you can go ahead.
To add something to what you're saying, and I think it's important to say this too. There is a big difference between a monster in a monster movie and a villain. A huge difference. But sometimes they can be both. And this film does it well. This guy is both a monster and a villain all wrapped up into one.
Mm-hmm.
The film does it very, very well.
And he gets his way. That's the crazy thing about this movie, is the monster wins. The villain is victorious at the end of it. Has he paid for it? Yeah. But he gets, at the end of the story, he gets to walk away. And that's one of the subtle, scary things about this movie. And the real life things is that sometimes a bad guy wins.
Yeah.
Was it Javier Bardem who played
Javier Bardem? Yes.
Okay.
He played it, and he said they approached him with the film, and he says, "I don't drive, I don't speak very good English, and I hate violence." And the Coen brothers go, "That's why we came to you."
Wow.
That is exactly how the conversation went down, and that's amazing. For him to do
That really is.
That is
The
amazing.
Coen brothers are brilliant with how they're able
amazing.
to mix together these different things and to give us a story that is right on the edge of our own reason. They're very good at it.
Wow. All right, Greg, jump in there.
Oh, well, my movie is about 1962, Larry, even older than your film.
Woohoo!
Wow, I didn't know this was a contest.
Yeah, I would have gone back to the recording.
1938.
I have a
1937. There's a movie, but that's
I've got a
different.
31 if you're ready. You know?
We'll go there ready. So yeah, this particular movie sports two villains, the birth villain and the child villain. The primary villain in this particular movie is 8 years old.
I know what this movie is.
Oh, I think I know what this is.
Oh my god,
This is terrifying.
But let me tell
Let it
you,
go, Greg.
This is why I punched small
let me
children.
tell you, this is one of the most horrible films I've ever seen. And
Horrible or horrifying.
It sounds
Yes.
like it's horrifying.
It sounds like it's a bad movie.
No, it's not. No, it's actually pretty well done, actually.
Okay,
Horribly horrified.
and that's why I need editing for my books. Horrifying. Thank you, Larry, and the rest of the gallery. The Bad Seed.
Mm.
One of the most horrific experiences that anyone can. Now, the child is everything about her is she seems very nice, very pleasant. She's polite until she can't get her way. Now, once she doesn't get her way, it did remind me of someone I knew when I was younger. Once she doesn't get her way, she starts doing, killing people.
That sounds like No Country for Old Men. Oh no!
It is.
Hey, similar tropes.
This is
No, here's the thing. He didn't even need to get his way. He just killed people.
Oh well, that's true.
Well, she didn't need to get her way either, but she still killed people. First, there was a little boy because she wanted the trophy that he won. Then there was a man who knew about the little boy and his shoes and where those shoes come from, little girl. I'm going to tell on you. Well, you're not going to get a chance, mister. But see, here's the thing. I blame her mother. Because see, that's the other villain in this. And the villain that's truly in disguise is because the mother knew this child was losing her marbles and did nothing about it.
I think the child was born without marbles, but that's neither here nor there.
The marbles were there. The marbles were there. They were just in another room. But the point is that this mother did everything she could because she realized this child was losing it. Yet she let this child exist in the world. She let this child get away with a lot of things that had she not done that, the child might have been different. We don't know, because she let her get away with everything. Oh, I don't know, the cliche term, she let her get away with murder. Often. Now, when the mother started noticing that people were starting to be missing, like when the little girl, let me stop myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. The little boy was missing. The mother didn't say, "What did you do?" She said, "Do you know anything about this, honey?"
The
girl goes,
on the list.
"I don't know, Mom, but I love my trophy." That her mother knew she didn't win.
Right.
But she loves her trophy.
My precious. No, it's a different.
Yes. Well, Gollum's sister, that's who this is. So, yeah, I think she's one of the most horrifying figures in modern film.
Yeah. So I have another film from 1931 that has a similar but not completely same trope as yours, Greg. And this is the 1931 movie M.
Oh, good film.
It's a German film, and it stars Peter Lorre.
Love Peter Lorre.
And it's it's probably his very best acting job. The film, the story here is about a man he's a pedophile and he kills children.
Oh, wow. Back in 1931.
And this movie is based on something that was really happening in Germany at that time.
Oh, wow.
In the 20s and 30s. This story happens in Berlin, and children are turning it missing and turning it missing. And then they're finding them dead. And the police are blaming the underworld. And the underworld realizes that if they don't catch this guy before the cops do, the cops are going to come in and clean the underworld out, because the cops are blaming the underworld for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of blame going around. This movie is very important for a couple of reasons. And one of the reasons is this is the first film ever that identifies a piece of music for a specific character.
That's right.
And M, played by Peter Lorre, has two personas. One, it's just a nice man who lives down the street, until he starts whistling or humming The Hall of the Mountain King.
Oh, God.
That's when I was getting ready to start the whistling.
And that's when he's in pedophile mode. And you see him approach, and you see him cajole his victim.
Correct.
And now the victim is missing. You actually are a part of this, and it's horrifying. But that's not what this is where the twist is in here. At the end of the film, the mothers and fathers of the lost children realize that, in a way, they were the real villains. Because they didn't do what was needed to be done to protect their children.
That's right.
So when good people do nothing, evil persists.
That's right.
What
That's
could
right.
the parents have done?
That's right, Batman.
Besides move.
Well, and in that place and time, you couldn't just up and move.
Right. So what could the parents have done?
Be around the children more.
Maybe just not let their children out without supervision.
Yep.
You know. Anyway, the parents are realizing that they might not have been able to stop that man, but maybe their child would have been alive if they showed more interest in what their children were doing once they left home for the day.
Yeah.
And so part of this then is I am the villain too. If I'm a parent and I'm not taking care of my kids the way I should.
Mm-hmm.
The film is absolutely incredible, and it's timeless. It's timeless. Parts of it run a little bit slow, but parts of it are just going to grip your heart and pull you into that film like you were really in that neighborhood at that time.
I just find it pretty ironic that the underworld, or like, it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The underworld's like, whoa, we've got standards. We don't do pedophile crap. We don't go around killing children. We need to stop this guy, because he's going to ruin our reputation.
That's right. And so the people who are normally villains here are not.
Right.
They as a matter of fact, they even recognize the whole culture in their neighborhoods better than the cops do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because the cops just blame somebody, and these people are not blaming anybody, but they have to find them, and they eventually do. And then there's a trial at the end, which is a great trial scene. And if you can stand subtitles. Be careful, don't get the American remake that was done I believe in the 50s.
Okay.
It's not very good. This one here, the original 1931, Fritz Lang, I believe, no, not Fritz Lang. Yeah, I think it was. Fritz Lang was the director. Wonderful film.
All right. I wonder if a movie like that could be made today, frankly.
Yeah, something close to that was maybe the one with Angelina Jolie, Changeling.
The Changeling.
Changeling.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was still pretty uncomfortable. So it's tough. Those movies don't quite get the traction in terms of box office, obviously. But it's a hard movie to watch. But yeah, something recently was within the last 10 to 12 years made.
What about when the villain is actually fruit?
What?
When the villain is actually fruit.
Which
what do you mean by
fruit?
that?
Well,
Are you gonna literally
Passion fruit, a banana, a star fruit, what? Grapefruit?
it's
Tomatoes? Attack of the Killer Tomatoes?
strawberries.
tomatoes?
The strawberries.
Oh
The
yeah,
strawberries
from
made
the
me do
Cave
it.
Mutiny.
From the Kane Mutiny with
Oh, I hated
with
those
Humphrey Bogart.
strawberries. Those strawberries were evil.
The strawberries were evil.
Bill.
Now, I don't know who took the strawberries, but we're going to make the whole shit pay.
Yeah, right. Right. I know, I love that.
So Kane Mutiny is
I-
one of my favorite films, and it paints Humphrey Bogart as being the true villain in here, the captain of this naval vessel. But it's really the things that drove him to be crazy, drove him to the end, and ultimately, it ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back was the fruit.
And actually, I would say it was Humphrey Bogart. Well, Jose Ferrar's character, who's the attorney, who comes in the last like 30% of the movie, or really 20% of the movie. When he comes in, his whole raison d'etre, his own reason for being, is to say, I know this man looks like the villain. He's not the villain. You know who the villain is? Fred McMurray's the villain because he's a coward.
Correct.
You know, Van Heflin is the coward because he's the facilitator, and you've got all this dissembling, all this sneaky crap going around. This man needed help.
Right.
You all didn't do a goddamn thing to help him. All you did was just sort of conspire and, you know, get together and whisper amongst yourselves like the cowards you are. I'm disgusted by the lot of you. I wish I'd never defended you, except that you need a defense, and I wish I'd never won. And you all, I'm going to go get drunk because you all make me sick, you know, kind of thing.
Boy, how young you looked in that film, huh?
What's ironic here is the fact that Karen's never seen this movie. But with that being said, she did a really good rendition of what she read last night about this film. When I called her and said I was going to, talk about the strawberries.
Well,
But yeah, I think you're totally right, Karen. That was it. The true villain was not the captain himself; it was the people surrounding him. Without that, had they supported him even early on in the film, he might not have gone to that extreme. Now, obviously, there's no way for us to truly know that. There was something off about him anyway. But at the same time,
well, he was a wackadoodle captain, no doubt. That man had no business commanding a ship.
Right, but with better support, it would have been seamless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's exactly what the Navy doesn't like,
Right.
in general. So you follow chain of command, but it's the good of the ship, what's going on. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I jump in with my actual favorite villain?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because Killmonger's not my favorite. He's one of my favorites, but he's not the favorite. And actually, this guy isn't the actual favorite. My actual favorite is probably the Wicked Witch of the West. But
we all know
I'm going to say,
that's just boring.
I'm going to save her.
I mean, that's just like obvious,
I know, Captain Obvious, right? So let me bring up one of my favorite villains who won't be so obvious. That would be Tom Ripley in the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley from 1999, directed by Anthony Minghella. I love this villain. Oh my God. Matt Damon plays Tom Ripley, and he just like bungles his way into being a serial murderer, basically. I mean, he seemingly bungles, except that he's so insidious. He's so just sneaky. He's like mold, like the mold that turns, black mold. And then before you know it, you've got like mesothelioma and you didn't even realize that you were in a mine. That's the kind of villain Tom Ripley is. He's like mold. And
there are times when you want to empathize with him, and then
because he's so pathetic. He's such a pathetic man. He's so pathetic. He's like, well, somebody needs to help him, but then he goes around murdering people for no good reason, and it's just like, oh.
Well,
I love this villain.
yeah, and it's like he's a serial killer. Why is he killing people? Well, because he can.
Right.
Right.
Because they might like figure out who he really is. Like he's this really nice. I mean, he's like the soul of. He's like practically a pillar of the community until he gets over to Italy, and then it's like something's unleashed because he's entitled. He has a sense of entitlement to riches and to a life of ease and all this other stuff. And then when he sees people getting in his way, he's like, well, you know, if I just kill you, then I can get what I want faster, you know? And the other thing that's really cool about this movie is Philip Seymour Hoffman makes an appearance in sort of like one of those cameo. It wasn't really a cameo role, it was bigger than that. But he had like the supporting role as a friend of the main victim. And Jude Law played the main victim, Dickie Greenleaf. And Philip Seymour Hoffman was a friend of Dickie Greenleaf. And Philip Seymour Hoffman keeps looking at Tom Ripley and going, there's something off about you. There's something really, really wrong with you. And I don't even want you around because you're like creepy, man. And so, you know, of course, Tom gets mad at Philip Seymour Hoffman, kills him too. So.
Wait, no, I didn't see. No,
okay.
I'm joking.
It's a 20-year-old movie, but it's so delicious. It's like, just check it out. It's so much fun.
You know what? As you said, I'm going through all these movie villains to start popping up in my head. And I was like, wait, no, it's a comic book one. I did that. Wait, no, that's a comic book one. I did that. Wait, no, that's an animated one. Too close to comic books. I did that one. But as you're mentioning this to me, Gone Girl, and I don't remember the actress's name.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And I don't remember the character's name.
Totally surprised me when she killed
but she was like
Doogie Howser.
yeah.
That was just wrong.
She was like evil, and you just like, I can't believe. And it's just like, God, it's like, you know, when you can feel bad for what's the actor's name, the main actor?
Ben Affleck.
When you can feel bad for Ben Affleck, and most people don't feel bad for Ben Affleck.
Right.
When you can feel bad for Ben Affleck in a movie, you're like, she's really evil. Just her, you know, her machinations and just how manipulative she was and how she rolled things around and how she trapped him in his own malaise was just, you know, ingenious, diabolical, and just evil. I mean, it was just like,
it was so evil.
Right. Just how self-serving were you? And just like, how far in advance were you planning these things? And like, to what extent will you go?
Now, here's my thing. I think they named the movie wrong. It should have been Stay Gone, Girl.
Yeah, really.
Because all you're doing
Get lost, girl.
You know,
maybe the second movie.
And I'm sure there are a lot of other aspects too that I'm not going into, and I'm sorry I'm not giving the quite movie, you know, definitions and all the great words and phrases that you guys use. But
it's our show, Glenn. Go ahead.
for her to kind of utilize things, you know, not to sound misogynistic, but with women a lot of time.
Put that up, somebody.
You know, I'm a woman who's in the room, right?
Right. But with women to be able to use their femininity in terms of, you know, there's certain things you don't think a woman would do. For her to kind of play to those stereotypes and use them to her benefit and to trap him in that and to trap him in his, you know, quote unquote manhood and the certain things that, you know, you could expect a man to be capable of doing. She used that to, and not only that, but then Doogie Howser character, I think, I'm not certain if he was someone that loved her, but even his masculinity was somewhat questioned in the movie, but she still was able to even use his him being a sycophant. She is able to utilize that to work against him and him being killed. It was masterful. And it was just like, wow, like she is just a different level.
And you know,
it makes you wonder why he wanted her back.
I know.
Well,
I'm like, really, dude? You know, I hate to say this, but even I think there are other fish in the sea.
He might be too scared.
I think one of the reasons why this film works the way it does is it relies on the unspoken sexist attitude that men have. And it relies on that strongly. What do you think about that, Karen?
Well, yes. Thank you for that. Now that you mention that, that does make sense. Thank you for explaining that. No, actually, I think you're right. That is what's going on, and I love that sort of that subtext of sexism / chivalry / just being in love
Emphasis
with
on the
somebody.
slash. Emphasis on the slash.
You know what I mean. But yeah, it's just the way that like you all were saying, the way that those things were interplayed and turned into weaknesses, which they can be in the right circumstances, But it's like, wow. Yeah, that was a really good movie. I really like that movie.
Yeah.
How about you, Steve?
Say what?
You have another one?
I do have one more. My favorite movie of all time is The Professional with Jean Reno, and one of my favorite villains of all time, Norman Stansfield, played by Gary Oldman. This guy is such a mix of crazy, of druggy, of psychotic, of genius. Like, he's on a whole nother level. And the fact that the first time you really meet this character, he's literally just standing, his back to you, in a hallway, like he's composing. He's listening to music and he's hearing it in his head. And he's a DEA agent, and he believes one of his guys who's hiding drugs in his residence, maybe using his drugs, and he has no time for that. They're my drugs. I sell the drugs. You hold the drugs. And he goes in, like, he goes to town with a tomahawk, except it happens to be a shotgun. And he tells the guy, "You've got 3 minutes to find my drugs." He comes in, literally Mozart, or not Mozart, Beethoven. It's Beethoven playing in the background. And he says, "I love these whimsical moments before death." Like the little calm before the storm, where he walks in with a shotgun and the music is like really starting to get going. Boom, shotguns the door. Boom, takes out one of the kids. Boom, takes out the wife in the bathtub who's listening to something. I don't care. If you have headphones in, you're going to hear a shotgun. Don't be an idiot. Duck and hide. And then boom, little girl runs, or older daughter runs around the corner, runs back, runs around the corner again. Bam, shotgun in the back. And then he walks into the kitchen and is standing there just going to town, like this concert that he's playing.
That is disgusting.
He goes in to where the dad is, who is hiding his drugs, and looks him right in the face and taps his watch and goes, "You're 1 minute past." All of that for 1 minute. The fact that Matilda gets away and then comes back and confronts him and is going to kill him. She confronts him in the bathroom. And she finally says, "You killed my brother." He goes, "I'm sorry, do you want to join him?" That's crazy. That is a level of insanity. But this man is ahead. He's even ahead of our hero toward the end. Our hero just happens to be just a touch bit more ahead than that. Just a touch, like a smidgen. But I just really wanted to bring him around. He's one of my favorite characters. It's my favorite movie. The fact that he portrays this villain so well with his own moxie, with the character that he's given, and then drives it away.
Hey, guys. We're going to go to part 2 of this wonderful discussion in our next episode. So stay tuned. We're going to say goodbye for now, and we'll be back in part 2. Ciao.
Boy.